Hello again, friends and family. It's Bible story time again. This is Hadasha Shulamite coming to you with another story, and it's from the Bible, a story that most of us have already heard, but these stories are classics. It's like watching the sound of music, it never gets old, and even better than that. Anyway, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, today my story is about a defiant queen who loses her crown. Ahasuerus was a king that ruled back in ancient days, and his province was from India all the way to Ethiopia. Now, in the third year of his reign, he decided to have a party, a convention, whatever the case may be, and he invited all these people from his kingdom, those who his leaders from the different provinces and from the kingdom. You can imagine all of these people that worked under his leadership. And so he had a feast while they toured the kingdom, and he showed them everything. I guess there were a lot of like, wow, amazement, and wow, and wow, and wow, because it was so beautiful. Now, this feast lasted for 180 days. Those people knew how to throw a party back in those days. It was never for one day, like a wedding and things like. It was never for just one day. It was for days or at least a week. And so 180 days they feasted, and he showed them the kingdom and all of these things. And on the 180th day, at the end of that, he decided to have a feast for the people in the kingdom itself, who I guess his employees, those of lesser stature, so to speak. And, young and old, great and small, everybody. And the party was held in the courtyard, where the pillars were of marble. The floor was blue and purple. Blue, red, black, and white marble. And the pillars were, white, and they had beds. Now, I wonder about the beds, and I'm thinking the beds were something like the chaise lounge that we have today, because the regular bed that you sleep on would not be out in the courtyard. But a lot of times in reading the Bible scriptures, they talk about laying on the bed. So I guess the way it was built was referred to as a bed. And the beds were gold and silver, okay? And like I said, they said the pavement, I guess, where they were, it was probably like concrete, I don't know, or tiles. It was probably like tiles, but the colors were silver, red, blue, white, and black marble. And the vessels that they drank from, the wine and the champagne, I don't know if they had champagne then, but it was good stuff. And every vessel was made different. There were no pair six, we have everything matching, but they were all unique in their own ways, and they were gold cups. And the king's command was that everybody should have whatever they desired. If you wanted a whole turkey, you can have it. If you wanted the whole bottle of champagne, there was no limit, because this brother was exceedingly rich. Now, at the end of this party for the kingdom, the people in the kingdom, his employees and everybody else, it lasted for 7 days. 7 days they were eating and drinking and having a good time. I guess they went home, changed, came back, and continued for 7 days. And everybody was whatever they wanted. He said, whatever anyone's wishes are, that's what you do. And so I guess there was a lot of overtime too for those who were working as servers and the cooks and all that kind of stuff. Just imagine the whole situation. So at the end of the 7th day, when the king's heart was merry, he was like, wow, I'm having a good time. Oops. Then he remembered his wife Vashti. Vashti was beautiful, and he decided to send for her so that he can let her come, with her royal crown and her, her garment, and for everybody to see her beauty. So he sent his chamberlains for her. There were 7 of them. And they went to to Queen Vashti, and whatever obeisance they had to do, or whatever the protocol was, and whatnot. And Vashti was like, no, I am not coming. I guess they were shocked, because you did not do that to the king. If the king said to come or go, that's what you did. But Vashti was defiant. She was like, I'm not going. And I'm thinking, in my own way, she probably said, no, he sent for me. In the meantime, she was having a party for her, the women in her palace, because she had a separate palace from the king. And she was having her party too. So she probably thought, all this time, 180 days, 7 days, and now he sends for me, I'm not going. Let him party with whoever he was partying with, I just imagine what was going through, or what she must have said, or at least what was going through her mind. But she defied the king. She said, I'm not going. I'm not going to be displayed like a piece of meat in front of everybody. No, you tell the king I'm not coming. So they went back to the king with this message, and the king was furious, of course, because you didn't do that. And I mean, her life was at stake, really. But she was defiant. She was like, I'm not going. And, I've heard different concepts about how she reacted. Was it the right way? I've heard one pastor say, in his drunken state, he sent for her, and that's why she didn't want to go. No, I don't know. It may have been she was upset because she was not invited before. And, only now he sent for her. I think that that's what it was. Yeah, well, who knows? Anyway, so the king, after she didn't show up, he was upset and whatnot, and his counselors and them, they're like, okay, we have an idea. This is what you do. We suggest that you not have Vashti as queen anymore. What we're going to do, we're going to send all over the provinces and collect all the most beautiful young virgins we can find, and you can have your pick. Because you know what? If you continue this relationship with Vashti, the queen, all the women are going to do the same thing. They're not going to listen to us. They're going to be disobedient to their husbands. And we're not going to be able to control them because, she's the example. She's the queen. So they're going to follow her lead. And so he thought about it and he said, okay, let's do that. And I guess the thought of having all these young maidens parade before him wasn't such a bad idea after all. That's probably what he was thinking. So the thing about it, even when they selected these maidens, the Bible doesn't say how many of them they were, but they did not just get dressed and go before the king. It took them 1 year to prepare to go before the king. The first 6 months, they had to go through a process of herbs and different oils and things like that. And then the next 6 months, I guess it was an internal cleanse or whatever, but they were called like purifying. They had to be purified with myrrh, with oil of myrrh. And then the next 6 months with sweet odors and all that stuff. Can you imagine? I wonder if he was purified too. But anyway, that's the way it was done. Now, at the end of the year, these young maidens, they took turns going to the king. And they would go in the evening, I guess spend the night, and if he liked them, oh, well, okay. But then they were sent back to the next morning, they were sent to another house, which is the house where, you were already, had a relationship with the king, and you were called a concubine, and you were there. And some of them stayed there for the rest of their lives. They were taken care of, but that's it. They couldn't go and marry another person. Once you went with the king, you were his property, I guess. Anyway, so it was the time for Esther. it was her turn, because Esther was a Jew girl. She was a Jew, not a Jewish. She was a real Jew. And her parents had died. And so her uncle, or her, I think it was her cousin, Mordecai, had taken her because both of her parents had died, and he raised her. He taught her, raised her up in the right way and all that. And she was gorgeous. She was Beyonce, Lupita, Halle Berry, wrapped into one. And it was her turn to go. Now, when it was the maiden's turn to go into the king, there were certain things that was given to her to prepare, maybe her clothes. Maybe she had the best designer gown, maybe of your Wang or Givenchy or whatever, And it was her turn to go. So they also allowed them to request other things. Well, what do you want? And she was like, whatever you give me, that's what I'm going to use. That's enough. And Esther, she got dressed. She was already gorgeous. And she went it was her turn in the evening, and she went to the king. Now the king is sitting on his throne, in a certain position. And I guess the chamberlain would announce that the maiden is here. And she walked in. In walked Esther, dressed just as beautiful as ever. And right away the king lifted his scepter to her. And that was a token that you are my queen. And of course, they consummated the marriage, however they did it and whatnot. And he put the royal crown upon her head. And here was this young Jew girl who was, she was a captive, so she didn't have a whole lot. And here she was, the queen of 127 provinces, and her husband the king. Now, her uncle, Mordecai, he had told her, because of course she let him know, because he was like her father. So I guess she sent message to him or whatever to let him know, I have been selected. Guess what? I'm being selected to be the queen. I don't know if she was happy about the idea or not, but it is what it is. And as a matter of fact, every day Mordecai would always check. Once she was selected, he would always go by the area and inquired about her. How is she okay? And things like that. Maybe he had a special person, maybe a little boy. But little boys, they know how to get around and get in and out of places and whatnot. And she told him what had happened, that she was the queen, that the queen had selected, the king, had selected her to be queen. And so he told her, he said, don't say anything to our people, because they weren't the only Jews in the realm, because a lot of them were captives from Babylon, from Jerusalem. The Babylonians had captured a lot of them, those who were healthy and educated and whatever, they had a select few, and Esther and her uncle were a part of this group. And so they kept that a secret. And I don't know if she went back to the house, to the secondary palace, or what. The Bible doesn't say how long she stayed at the palace. Maybe he kept her there for a couple of days, because she was fine. The sister was fine, and he didn't have Vashti, and so she was his wife. She was the queen. That's the bottom line. Anyway, this story continues. I will continue this story. This story is one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite Bible stories, and I will continue it. In the meantime, and in between time, these are the things I think of, that when God is on your side, because Esther was raised a certain way. She was raised to be proper, to love God, to love her fellow man. She was obedient to her uncle Mordecai, and he raised her right. And so those attributes were seen even when she was there in the house being groomed for that whole year. And as a matter of fact, the chief that took care of all the needs of these girls, he favored Esther. He gave her, she had 6 maidens to work with her, to help her, to prime her up. You know, sometimes I wonder what it is that he did exactly. I mean, you know, they had to bathe with, you know, different types of scents and all this kind of stuff for a whole year. They went through this season of purification before they went to the king. And getting back to what I was saying is that, you know, when God has a plan, he has a way of doing it. When you think of the whole scenario where she was captured, as, you know, she was a captive, and here she is becoming the queen, you know, and the steps that God will take. It's just fascinating. It's fascinating, the Bible stories, and even in life, the way God would lead, the way things would happen, the way my sister once said to me, it's like a puzzle, you know, the jigsaw puzzles, and every piece will fit in to produce this beautiful picture. In this instance, it was Esther being the queen of Babylon. Okay? So anyway, like I said, we will continue the story, what happens. And there are some really, really interesting events that took place after Esther became queen, involving her uncle and the king and the plot. Okay? So next time, please remember to set your notification so that when I upload this story and others, you will be alerted and not miss any of these fantastic, true Bible stories. God bless you. And remember, Jesus is coming, and he is coming soon. Prepare. God bless. Have a wonderful day.